Hi class, in this video we're going to go over the production topic in this chapter. So this is going to be a very math intensive chapter, so make sure you have the calculator ready or at least have the Excel open next to you. Okay, so we're going to use Excel formula a lot in this chapter. Okay, if you never used Excel before, Excel is like a giant calculator. So calculate everything you want to calculate. We're going to use this. I'll introduce you to some basic functions on Excel, and this will help you on your homework, also on the quizzes. All right, so first, we're going to talk about cost. So know the difference between the explicit cost and implicit cost. So explicit cost is any cost you must pay money out. So monetary payment made by individual and firms and government for the use of resource owned by others. So whatever you must pay money for, that's called explicit cost. The other one is called opportunity cost. Now we went over this before. So opportunity cost, this is whenever you have an opportunity you must give up. So because opportunity cost is never any free lunch. But in this topic, we have a new cost. It's called an implicit cost. So implicit cost is the opportunity cost you must give up. So this is the cost that doesn't require money. So for the total cost for a company and for any owners, your total economic cost is your explicit cost plus implicit cost, and that is your total cost. Now, next is difference between the economic profit and accounting profit. So accounting profit, that's what you show on the book. That's what the government cares about. That's what the tax revenue cares about. So your accounting profit equals to your total revenue. So by the way, TR stands for total revenue. So it's total revenue minus your total explicit cost. So everything you must pay money out. Now your economic profit is your total revenue minus your economic cost, which is the explicit cost plus implicit cost. Now, if you compare the two, see how economic profit, you must consider this actual part, the implicit cost here. So because of that, your accounting profit is always more than economic profit because your implicit cost is always more than zero. That there's always opportunity cost involved. All right, so let's suppose I have a situation that your total revenue is 15,000, your explicit cost is 12,000, and the implicit cost is 4,000. Then your accounting profit will be the 15,000. Terrible handwriting. So the 15,000, your total revenue minus your explicit cost, so 12,000. Then you're gonna show on your accounting book of a profit of 3,000, which is good. But your economic profit, that will be your 15,000 minus the 12,000, and then minus the 4,000. That's your implicit cost. So you're gonna have a negative $1,000 of economic profit. So which means that you actually worse off. So one example of this, imagine that let's suppose right now I have a full-time job. Let's say I'm teaching, and then my full-time job, my monthly salary is $4,000. And then let's suppose I want to quit my teaching job and I open a restaurant. Let's say open a business, a restaurant. So for my business, every month my revenue, so how much money I'm collecting, is 15,000, and then how much cost I must pay out. So my labor, my raw material, my rent, my utility. So every month I must pay out 12,000. So on my book, on my accounting book, I can show a $3,000 profit. But remember, in order to open a business, I must give up my day job, so I cannot teach anymore. So that actually makes me $4,000. So what should I do? Should I open a business which I make us $3,000, or should I still teach and make it $4,000? I should still teach because that's a higher profit. But if I do decide to open a business instead, my economic profit, which is also including this opportunity cost, there will be a minus $1,000. That means every month I'm losing money by go open a restaurant instead of teaching. Okay, all right. So that's a difference. Now next, we're going to talk about the difference between short run and long run, and the total, marginal, and the average product. So short run is anytime you have at least one input of production that is fixed. So fixed means you cannot change it. That means in this short span of time, then this cost is fixed. It doesn't matter whatever you do, this cost cannot change. So one thing you can think about the building you have for business. Now for employees, you can hire more people. You can reduce people's hours, depends on what the need for the company is. So those can be very flexible. But for the building itself, it's not very flexible because those are require more resource to build, and also take a long time to build them. So in the short span of time, how many building you have is fixed, and that is a short run. But in the long run, so once you look at, let's say, 10-year span, in the 10-year span, everything becomes flexible, right? So building is no longer fixed in the long run, but it's only fixed in the short run, the short span of time. And then next, your total product is your total amount of output that's produced with your given resource. So basically just how much you produce, your total productions. So total production is also called the total product. And then next, now this is your first formula, your marginal revenue. Well, this is a typo here. This is your marginal product. So marginal product, this is your marginal production. So what that is, you're going to take your total production, the change of it, divided by the change of labor. That's your marginal product of labor. So what this measures that for every for one additional worker you have, how many marginal or additional production do you get from hire one more worker? That's called the marginal product of labor. So let me repeat. Okay, so this means that if you hire one more worker, how many extra production do you get from hiring one more worker? Now, let's suppose I open a business. Let's suppose I hire employees to make stuff for me. So let's say the only thing we make is chicken fried rice. Okay, so nothing else, just chicken fried rice. Now, let's suppose I hire my first worker. So number of labors. And then this one will be my number of chicken fried rice produced. Okay, so suppose I hire my first worker. I can produce, let's say, 10 chicken fried rice. Now I hire my second worker. I can produce 15 chicken fried rice. And then 3 worker, I can produce total 18 chicken fried rice. Now this 10, 15, and 18, that's my total production. So TP. Now if you're looking for the MP, the marginal product. The marginal product is the change in total production. So triangle stands for change. So change in total production divided by change in labor. Now, in this case, it's pretty easy. Well, this is PP, total production. Because my change in labor between every level just 1. So if I go from the first level from 1 to 2, the change in labor is 1. My change in number of chicken fried rice is 5. So 5 over 1, that is just 5. Okay, so 5 is my first marginal product. And the next one, my change in labor is also 1. And then change in marginal product is 3. So 3 over 1 is 3. Then that's my marginal product. So just how much is your additional production for one more higher labor? That's called a marginal product. All right, and then your average product, just take your total production divided by the number of labor you have. That's your average product. So in our previous sample, if you're looking for the average product, so average product, this we're going to use our total production. So 10 divided by 1, which is 10. And the next one, 15 divided by 2, that's 7.5. And next one, 18 divided by 3, that's a 6. So that is your average product. So just take your total production divided by number of labor. That's your average production. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's suppose you have something like this on your test or on the homework. You need to fill in the blank. So I might give you your labor. I'll give you the total production. You need to figure out what is the marginal production and what's the average production. So for marginal production, it's just a change in every level. Okay, so if you notice that every marginal production is the difference between the total production, that's your marginal production. And then for the average production, just use your TP divided by the labor. That's your average production. So 46 over 2 is 23, 60 over 3 is 20, and 55 over 5 is 11. So this is just your total production over number of labor. Okay. All right. Couple law here. So first note, what is the increasing marginal return? So this one says it's a characteristic of production whereby the marginal product of the next unit of a variable resource utilized is greater than that of the previous variable resource. Now, it sounds like a lot of information. All this says is that if you hire one more worker, so let's suppose we have our first person and then second person. If your second person is more productive, that's called an increasing marginal return. Now, vice versa, that if you have, again, two people, so first worker, second worker, if your second worker is less productive, that is called diminishing marginal return. So the more worker you hire, the less production you get from additional workers. Now, if you look at our previous example before, if you compare our marginal product, see how it is like increasing in the beginning, right? So go from 16 to 30. So this part is your increasing marginal product or marginal return. But see after 30 it started going down. So 24, 0, 5, and 7. That's called diminishing marginal return. So you're getting less and less and less. Okay. So for most companies in the beginning of the productions, they can have this increasing marginal return. But as the company become bigger, they lose efficiency, and then those competitive advantage goes away, and then company become less efficient, and then they start to experience this diminishing marginal return. The more labor you hire, the less additional output you get from each additional workers. Okay, so that's called diminishing marginal return. That's very common. Most company has it. All right, so let's continue. Now next we look at the total variable and the fixed cost. So fixed cost is the cost that does not change, depends on the time, depends on how much you produce. So it doesn't matter what the quantity is, you pay the fixed cost. So it doesn't matter how much you produce, you pay the same amount of cost. So one example of this, think about rent. That if you're paying for rent, your rent is fixed. It doesn't matter how much you produce, your rent wouldn't change. So that's called fixed cost. If you graph a fixed cost, your fixed cost is just a flat line. It doesn't change. So it's always constant regardless how much quantity you produce. Now, next one is your variable cost. So variable cost actually changes, depends on how much you produce. So the more productions you have, the more variable cost you will pay for. Now, for example, let's take our business, for example, again, chicken fried rice business. Okay, so for chicken fried rice business, now I need to pay for rent, and I need to buy chicken, I need to buy rice, right? I need to hire labor, and then I need to pay for utility. Now my rent is fixed, so it doesn't matter how much stuff I produce, I pay the same amount for rent. But for my chicken, if I produce more chicken fried rice, I need to buy more chicken, right? So my cost for chicken my total cost for chicken will increase. So this is flat or changes, so variable. My rice, same thing. If I produce more chicken fried rice, I must pay more money for rice. Now, this doesn't mean I pay more money per pound of rice, just means I pay more money for the total rice I have. So must pay additional money for rice. Okay, so that's also variable cost. Labor, same thing. If I need to produce more chicken fried rice, I must hire more workers. That's an increase my labor cost. So that's a variable cost. And then utility, same thing. That if I produce more chicken fried rice, I'll be spending more money on gasoline, more money on water, more money on electricity. So those also increase as well. So rent is fixed, so this wouldn't change. Doesn't matter how much you produce. This stuff over here, your chicken, your rice, your labor, utility, those tend to change. The more you produce, the more cost you have, and that is called the variable cost. Okay, all right. So if you graph your variable cost is increasing as the more and more quantities you have. So you produce more, your total variable cost increases. Then lastly, our total cost. Total cost is the total between your fixed cost and variable cost. That's your total cost. So if you graph your total cost, it's just above your total variable cost. And then the difference between your total cost and total variable cost, the difference, that's your total fixed cost. Okay, so so total cost minus total variable cost, that's your total fixed cost. It's same formula as the one you had before. Okay, so just put it another way. All right, so next let's look at our average cost. So for average cost, so first our average fixed cost, that's your total fixed cost divided by quantity. Now since my total fixed cost is always fixed, never change. So as my quantity become bigger and bigger, then this number becomes smaller and smaller because they're inversed. So if you graph your average fixed cost, it just going down constantly. Okay, it will never get to zero, but it will always hovering above zero. So again, your average fixed cost is your total fixed cost divided by quantity. And then your average variable cost, that's your total variable cost over quantity. Every time you hear the word average, just take the total divided by quantity, that's your average. Okay, so for your average variable cost, if you graph your average variable cost, looks like this. So it's going down in the beginning and then it's going up. Now this part is going down, that's your increasing marginal return. This part is going up, that's your diminishing marginal return, so can become less efficient. And then lastly, your average total cost, that's your total cost over quantity, that's your average total cost. It's also your average fixed cost plus average variable cost. So graph that. So the average total cost is the highest among the three. Okay, it's also going down in the beginning. So again, that's your increasing marginal return. And then here it's going up. That means the company is losing efficiency. That's a diminishing marginal return. Okay. So next, something called a marginal cost. So marginal cost is the additional cost associated with producing one more output. So marginal cost, this equals to the change in total cost over change in quantity. That's your marginal cost. So by producing one more unit, how much extra total cost you have, that's your marginal cost. And then to do this, you do the same thing you did before. So list what is the total cost. So this might be 10, 15, 18, and then the marginal cost will be the difference between each level, right? So that'd be 5 and then 3 and so forth. So if you graph your marginal cost, it's also going down in the beginning. That's your increasing margin return, and it's going up at the end. That's your diminishing margin return. So if you graph all three lines together, your marginal cost, your average total cost, your average variable cost, the marginal cost curve will intersect with both average total cost curve and the average variable cost curve. Now there's one key element you need to notice, is that whenever they intersect, So whenever the marginal cost intersect with the other curve, this is always the lowest point for those curves. So this intersection here is the lowest point of average variable cost, and this intersection here, that's the lowest point of average total cost. Okay, so wherever the marginal cost intersecting with those lines, that's the lowest point for those lines. All right, so next let's learn what's the long run. So long run, that means in this span of time, everything becomes flexible. So in the long run, you have no fixed cost. Then everything is all flexible now. Everything is all variable. Okay. So definitions, something called a long run average total cost curve. So long run average total cost curve is a curve that shows you the lowest average total cost possible for any given level of output when all input of production are variable. So you have something looks like this. This is very weird lines, 3 lines. You have 3 different average total cost curve. So this is representing different situation in the company. So average total cost ATC1, that's when company first started. They have somewhat very high average total cost, and a company expanding outward, you become more efficient. Then you have a lower average total cost. And then if you keep expanding outward, then you lose efficiency. Then you have a higher average total cost curve. So if you combine all 3 lines together, your long run average total cost curve looks something like this. So it's going down in the beginning, and then it will flat out and then goes up. So for this, we have some new terms. So first is called economy of scale. So economy of scale, it means that as you produce more good, your average total cost goes down. So it becomes cheaper to produce those goods. That's called economy of scale. Now the next one is called constant return to scale. So constant return to scale means doesn't matter how much you produce, your average total cost will stay the same. And last one is called diseconomy of scale. It just means the company is becoming too big. So as the more stuff you produce, the higher the average total cost you'll pay for. That's called diseconomy of scale. So if you look at this long run average total cost curve, in the beginning, when the long run average total cost was going down, that's called economy of scale. That means company are becoming more efficient. So many companies, when they try to merge with other companies, the first argument they will use this term. It's called economy of scale. The company can enjoy, let's say, share cost, so they can reduce the average total cost and then become more efficient. So imagine, let me give you an example. Imagine if AT&T merged with T-Mobile. Now, if you merge 2 companies together into one company, how many CEO do you need? Just 1, right? So which means theoretically, you can save some money on administrations. So that's called economy of scale. So you become more efficient. Now, next level is called constant return to scale. So this is flat. That means doesn't matter how much you produce more, produce less, then your average total cost stay pretty constant, doesn't change. And last one is increasing average total cost. That's called diseconomy of scale. So the more you produce, the even higher average total cost you have. So you're losing efficiency. Okay. All right. So guys, that's it for this chapter. So have any question, let me know. All right. Good luck. Bye-bye.